tonight, it'll be all 4 members of DX versus the Acolytes. And Triple H is like, oh yeah, no problem. That's easy. 4 against 2. Like, look, the Acolytes are a third, but we can beat them. No, actually, The Rock says they're going to need help. And I know just the tag team, The Rock and Sock Connection. Welcome to another edition of Tales from the Attitude Era. It's Rob, as always, joined by Tommy Blacha, the former head writer of WWE during said Attitude Era.
Said Attitude Era.
I just mentioned it. I thought.
I know.
I don't need to keep repeating Attitude
Reminds
Era.
me of being in like some kind of court case. So you were of the said Attitude Era.
Where were you on January 10th, 2000?
Yeah. Apparently you were involved in said Attitude Era. Guilty as charged.
You were in St. Louis, Missouri, it seems.
Yeah. This was a good one because as this ongoing therapy session of reliving all this stuff, I'm just struggling to remember a lot of this one for reasons I'm almost like, was I even there? Like, it's just like some shit just goes by so fast and like St. Louis. I think I don't, just no recall. But so this will be a great episode. 0 recall. What about this? Don't remember. What about this? Could be.
Well, I guess that's why we're here, for you not to remember things.
Yeah.
Maybe as I go through it.
Okay, I'll start with this because this is interesting. Sometimes it goes like this. Everything's running smoothly, whatever. Sometimes Gortz and I would go back and forth like, oh, here's a rundown. Make a rundown for, Vince to see. When is he going to get to it? I don't know. It's a Friday. Sometimes, he hasn't got to it. So you're kind of like, okay, let's get some other secondary rundowns. We're right. Okay. You always get a little paranoid, like, okay, I haven't heard anything. All right, it's getting to be the weekend. Whatever. So then you kind of go out sometimes and you're like, all right, it might even be as late as like Monday morning. You're meeting, if you go out, well, this would have been like, fly out Sunday. Maybe meet late in the hotel or somewhere, or early for breakfast, like 7. Okay, start laying stuff out. And he'd be like, no. And so you're just kind of mixing and matching and like, how about this? How about this? And I think this may have been one of those things where like you're utilizing the whole roster, but also, because nothing in this was like that needed to be that pre-planned. It was always amazing how much stuff you could just do last minute. So I think that was one of these where somehow that, always going for some kind of thematic thing or something like, oh, the idea came out where like, hey, the boys, the wrestlers themselves, the superstars themselves could like kind of book their own matches, like this turmoil of, of the regime of Triple H and Stephanie needing the wrestlers and so I can imagine just throwing a bunch of shit out there like this and like, okay, that's good. And then running there and just kind of flying by the seat of our pants again. But this was one of those shows where it was like a lot of matches, a lot of things thrown to agents. So it really was like a lot of actual in-ring action in this show, more than most, I would say.
I agree. It felt almost like more of the format of a SmackDown show than a Raw, in that there really wasn't much storyline advancement. It was more like almost treading water with all the stories, like just another wrinkle in it, but nothing really moving it forward.
You say treading water, I say
treading water,
standing proudly on its foundational base.
I agree. Treading water sounds a little mean. I don't mean it that way.
Yeah.
But we kick off, no recap, just the classic Raw intro. Love Thorn in Your Eye. Love this riff.
Yeah.
And we get an extended version of it because all the wrestlers are walking out to the ring. And I was very excited because I remember this and I actually misremembered it. I realized later on because I was like, oh, this is the Union storyline. But no, that was a year ago.
Right.
The Union story was, it was Big Show, Ken Shamrock, Test and Mankind. And they were protesting Shane McMahon taking power in the Ministry of Darkness. Kind of similar to the protest here.
You think so?
Which is why I was confused. some smart mark confusion. But
Yeah.
I still, even excusing that, I love this segment.
And let me point out first, also, there's been
Please.
many union squabbles from coal miners to auto workers through the decades, through the centuries. So, that this borrows from itself
It's very cheeky because, Vince must have known there was no chance. If ever there was a time for wrestlers to unionize in WWF, this is as great a time as ever because they're at the top of the world, doing great business, and there was a competitor that could afford some of these contracts. So if The Rock was serious about it, he really could have staged a strike.
Although I might add that one could argue quite the opposite in the sense that this is the place to be. This is where the money is. Don't fuck things up. We'll do anything, step over each other to get to that point, and don't rock the boats.
I don't think wrestlers think like that, though.
That's funny joke of the day. Funniest thing said so far on the podcast. But and also Vince does love when truth leaks in, and also he's not someone who'd ever be like, "Oh, I'm worried about this happening." He loves when shit is broken. You know what I mean? He loves when shit is fucked up. He loves when there would be, I imagine in a weird way, he would love a weird union walkout to fight against and be, you know what I mean? It's just, it's not his nature to everything's run smoothly. I like it. What? Some sort of chaos? It just, he'll create it if it's not there. So that would be my take. He would enjoy it.
Well, I thought this was as logical as could be. Pure logic smart mark was satisfied here. So the entire roster comes out to the Raw theme, and then The Rock gets his own entrance, which, way to telegraph. But it makes sense even in the story. And I want to mention, as a fan, you might be thinking, DX called out the entire roster to the ring, but then you see DX in the back, and they're like, what the hell is going on? And I just want to point out, if you look at the set dressing for the DX dressing room, it is like the most bare ass fucking room.
Of course.
With a salad tray and maybe a 35-inch CRT television.
Yeah, incredible. I love it. And also, you've really arrived when you have your own side room, because most of the time, there's a locker room where everyone is in, and then Vince's office or whatever. But you get your own side room, and you get that fruit and cheese thing from the local
tray.
Now that's everywhere, but you had to go to a pretty good deli at a pretty good supermarket, especially back then. So
good
that's that's when you've arrived.
So they were confused. The Rock says he knows you're wondering why the wrestlers are surrounding the ring. They asked The Rock to be their public spokesman. And despite how unaccustomed to public speaking The Rock is, he agreed.
Huge pop.
What a dry humor here.
Yeah.
I believe Lawler said only The Rock could get away with that shirt. I thought he looked very stylish. Red silk shirt. Mm-hmm. Triple H is called out by The Rock, and backstage, he gets up and tells DX, "Let's go." And the rest of DX goes, we actually called you out. You didn't call us out, so you go ahead. We'll be back here. I like this tension with DX. I like how everyone has had it up to here with McMahon Helmsley. It's what you were talking about. What we've been talking about on the show these last few weeks is that the tension is building, and it's building on both ends with what if the heels did take over, and would everyone just take the heat, or would there be pushback, and how would they face the pushback? So I really like this element to it, because I feel most of the time, even in WWE in the future, when they would do this type of storyline, like with the Authority or whatever, it was way too much unbalanced heat, where the heels were getting way too over on the faces, and the faces never got anything back. This was an entire episode where DX ate shit, so to speak.
Yeah, and I agree completely. And that was something we talked about a lot, and very important, because it creates that while the NWO was the greatest thing we always talk about, then at a certain point when they're all everyone's joining them, and then they're in power. It becomes like, to use your now time-honored phrase, everyone becomes herbs. And then you're like, oh, shit. WCW is supposed to be the baby faces, and then as a fan and you're watching, like, who gives a shit about WCW? You know what I mean? Like, what I feel bad for those guys. Like, we're binding together for WCW. Like, it's not even a traditional thing like NWA, or like, wait, what do you look bad? So that's an important thing to be like, okay, now you're in power, and like, it's cutthroat for you. It's fucked up. That was the thing we'd always talk about, like, oh, geez, to be in charge is like suddenly it's a fucking headache, So
yeah,
you got to leak those things into Triple H, and you can
I love that.
Play with those all kinds of things. Yeah, it just makes it more interesting, more dynamic, and more importantly, like you said, you're always trying to like, shit, half the guys got to lose, but how do they retain their heat? Oh, you're on top, but how is it going to be fucked up? It's funny because sometimes you talk about it. It's almost it's similar to military coups or dictators are in power. Like there's phrases like, don't mistake a strong grasp with a firm grasp, meaning like strong is like, okay, I'm forceful, but it's not firm, meaning like, oh, shit's ready to fall apart. So,
right.
So basically Triple H is Stalin, and I was like, Road Dogg is Trotsky, maybe. And, yeah.
So Rock calls out Triple H. Triple H tells DX to go. They're like, no, you go. And Stephanie tries to calm down DX as Triple H leaves. Triple H and Steph enter the arena. Stephanie grabs the mic first, tries to calm everyone down. Like, hey, everyone, let's relax. We're a great company here. And Rock tells her to know her role and shut her mouth.
Yep.
Big pop.
Yeah.
Big pop. Not sure he would say that today, but big pop.
I think you would, in that sense that, like, she's transcending the female thing. I don't know. I think you would.
No, that's fair. He would tell him that. He says first he wants to talk about Mick Foley, who's probably outside eating popcorn right now. And he makes it clear that he's going to make some demands. And if Triple H and Stephanie don't meet the demands, all the wrestlers around the ring are ready to walk out of this federation and join a new federation. Ooh. And before I could even joke WCW, The Rock says the WRF, the World Rock Federation. I love it. Big pop for me. Because that's totally believable that they're like, hey, we don't need this guy. We can start our own business. We can start our own company and our own touring agents.
And in fact, wrestling's so insane where it goes. I'm sure a lot of people like, oh, is this the launching of a W? You know what I mean? Like it would be totally feasible. Like if, you call your friend later and like, they launched the WRF and it's going to go against the thing, so absolutely.
He says that they need to reinstate Mick Foley now. Triple H agrees to that. Secondly, The Rock says, speaking for all of us, I think, there's been way too many gimmick matches. Of course, he doesn't say gimmick matches. He says there's been a pink slip on a pole match, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And he says, there's no way. And The Rock means, and the crowd, of course, no way that it will happen again. And Stephanie says, okay, we agree. Then the crowd starts chanting slut at her because it's the 90s and it's a family-friendly affair. And The Rock grabs the mic and says, seems there's 15,000 fans out here calling you a slut. And I like that Triple H clips back. I thought they were talking to you, Rock. That's how you know they're hooking up at this point, because here's Triple H like legitimately defending Stephanie with an ad-lib here. Third request. He says nobody can get fired unless there is just due. And that's fair. Mick Foley's music interrupts and he gets a big pop. He walks through the crowd. He thanks The Rock for the kind words. He condemns the McMahon Helmsley family for mocking him and his family, and immediately challenges Triple H for a world title match at the Royal Rumble at Madison Square Garden. Now, this is where it's interesting because as a smart mark, I wonder, well, why would The Rock allow Mankind to ask for the title? Why wouldn't he want the title match? Everyone's vying for the title. And in a way, The Rock explains it because he says, in this spirit, I am going to enter into the Royal Rumble. He wants to earn his title shot. He doesn't want it handed to him. So I like that immediately you quell any smart mark questioning. My smart mark radar is lowered.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, why would he do that?
Yeah. And so Rock is entering the Rumble, and Triple H has to agree to that.
And also something he hasn't achieved yet. So, he wants to, slay a bunch of dragons.
Right.
It's like bigger to slay that dragon and then go, so.
And Foley says, let's not waste all of our energy just on the Rumble, since we have 20K fans here in St. Louis. And Foley starts booking matches for tonight. He suggests Mr. Ass versus Road Dogg, or everybody walks.
Yeah.
Triple H says, yeah, all right, that's fine. That sounds like a good match. And then you cut backstage, and the Outlaws are so pissed. They're like, what? How dare you? Yep. Foley says on SmackDown, and this was a great attention to detail, Triple H said that X-Pac was just as good as him. This was like a throwaway line at the beginning of SmackDown to convince X-Pac to go out and face Big Show. And here Foley's calling back to that and saying, why don't you prove it tonight? You versus X-Pac. And Stephanie accepts. And we cut back to X-Pac, and he has a sly smile. He's like, finally, I can prove myself here. Right. I'm tired of being second fiddle here.
I know like all those. It's funny. Sometimes I do remember now things like the devil's always in the details. Like it's always like someone said somewhere like, "Oh, it would be better if Stephanie accepts." Just those little wrinkles that makes like, "Oh, Triple H didn't actually accept. Is he afraid?" You know what I mean? You're always playing with
right, exactly.
Like
and in a way, it really does put over X-Pac more because it shows that Triple H does see him as a threat. And the last thing he wants to do is have proof that X-Pac is better than him. So I like that. It made
and X-Pac having the smile. That's a good, thing too. Like, well, this is my opportunity and I'm not afraid of him,
Yeah. So Triple H and Seth are leaving and The Rock says, whoa. Hold on. One more thing. If you somehow make it through all these matches, tonight, it'll be all 4 members of DX versus the Acolytes. And Triple H is like, oh yeah, no problem. That's easy. 4 against 2. Like, look, the Acolytes are a third, but we can beat them. No, actually, The Rock says, they're going to need help. And I know just the tag team, The Rock and Sock Connection.
Yeah.
Big pop. DX is upset. And you set up the whole show now, basically. Set up the big matches on the show.
And this is just good old-fashioned, time-honored, clunky, wonderful, wrestling lingo where someone it's so predictable, but I love it. Like, here's the match. That like straight guy Triple H. Well, that's fine. That's easy. But wait, and now this. Oh no! It's like, when everything's over and it's great, you can do things like this. A lot of things like, hold on, one more thing. But when shit's going bad, or sometimes you're watching it and it's like, oh God, they're in the fucking ring with the fucking microphones and it's going too long, and there's a hold on, one more thing, and fuck.
Yeah.
you want to be offside going like, just cut it. No, cut the last thing on the fly. Just get out of there. Fuck it, it's going too long. One more thing. Oh, people are like, oh boy. You're like, oh, there's gonna be boring chants. But this isn't the case. It's the same shit, and it's because everyone's over, That's the difference.
Yeah, like I timed it. This segment was 20 minutes, almost on the dot.
Yeah.
And we've had many 20-minute segments which felt like they took forever. But this one I felt it was so dense, but like informative. A lot. You did set up the whole show here. You set up Rumble matches. This was the highlight of the show, I would even argue.
Yeah. Well, this is the deal. Sometimes later, when I know there's big writing staffs, you're kind of fucked if everyone's not over. I've seen 6-minute segments that are deadly that seem like an hour. Like, So booking stuff like booking this kind of stuff is always easy. It's not always in the booking. It's the fact that like, oh, the company's out there. Everyone's over. It's the fucking Rock. Foley's coming back. You know what I mean? By design, it's not that fucking tremendous, but like you said, like, holy shit, 20 minutes and my fucking attention's kept. The huge main reason is they're stars and everyone's over. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you're like, oh, let's rewrite this. Let's do this segment. Let's put this wrinkle in. And like, it's all fucked. They're not over. It's boring. Do less. You know what I mean? So just pointing that out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like this would have never worked without The Rock, I felt, too. Carrying it just because he was the glue that held everything together.
The Rock glue.
Backstage after the segment, Outlaws are yelling at Triple H. And Triple H says, what am I supposed to do? They were going to walk out. And I like that DX were like, so let them walk out. We're the best. Like, all you need is us. Which is, it's such believable dialogue. Of course they would think that, and of course he would say that. He's trying to get them to see his point of view, and they don't care. They're heels.
Yeah.
The New Age Outlaws music hits, but Road Dogg does not do the intro, so the crowd does it. That's how over they are. Like, to your point, everything is over. Road Dogg eventually comes out, does an abbreviated version of the intro to introduce himself. Billy Gunn comes out to his now classic Ass Man theme.
Is it now? It
is now deemed a classic. Yes. It's in the Criterion collection of entrance
It's been
themes.
fully sanctioned as classic. Oh, good. Thank God. Yeah, that's long time coming.
Right, with all those riffs. It was interesting because Road Dogg slipped into the face role as Billy Gunn played the heel since he's the bigger guy. He's more intimidating.
Slipped into the face role like someone just putting on a pair of silk panties, right?
You tripped it like on a banana peel. Like, whoop, I'm a face. Very clever ending here. Part of me thought are they doing that thing where it's teammates facing each other, but they're in on it, so they'll just do. But no, all the matches actually happen. I really like that.
Yeah.
And I like the ending because you can't really do a run-in this match. It doesn't quite make sense. Like, who's Triple H going to run in for? He's rooting for both. They don't have anybody just for themselves. So instead,
clean finish. Smart Mark must have been like, well, this is great.
Oh my God. My clean finished Smart Mark horns were fully erect. like, yes, this is what I need. But so I like that Billy Gunn had the advantage. He's showboating, doing the suck it, then runs to the ropes to do the Faymaster. And since they're tag team partners, Road Dogg has seen this coming hundreds of times. So he sees it coming from a mile away. Who better than your tag team partner to know how to reverse your finisher? So he catches Billy Gunn and reverses it into a powerbomb and a quick, tight pin, which Billy Gunn kicks out at 3.5, where typically that's a dick move. But in the context of the story is perfect because Road Dogg just got him. Yeah. And then they shake hands. There's no beef. They were just this spirit of competition.
But is there a... Yes.
I thought this was very well booked, and like I said, as someone who's been complaining about too many not clean finishes, this was a great finish, very clever.
Well, and also that was in the air, obviously, when you're booking this stuff. And what I liked and what I thought was smart about, I love when a company can shit on itself but still be over, and it's the same TV show in the sense of when I'm saying, look at all these bullshit on a pole matches and all this crap. And so you have people rooting against the shitty booking, but on the same show that's calling itself shitty and is moving forward with, we won't be, that's brilliant. It's amazing to me.
I guess that's the definition of having your cake and eating it too.
Yes.
Backstage, we see Mick Foley with Mankind, the fake Mankind. Foley has tied him up.
I think you got to work on that a little. I think it's a little bit we all know it's Mankind. Yours gets a little too gets a little too, I don't know what it's doing. You just become Frankenstein. Mankind. I'm not sure what you're, instead of
I'll work on it.
We'll work on it.
Mankind.
That's better. Much better.
Okay. So he's mocking the fake Mankind, and backstage. So this is an ongoing theme. In front of the McMahon Helmsley dressing room is a sign-up sheet, so anyone can sign up for a match or request a match.
Right.
Oh, look at how nice they are now that everyone's threatening a walkout.
Yeah.
See, folks, this is the lesson for your workplace. Get all of your co-workers together.
Yeah.
threaten to walk out, and suddenly your demands will be met.
Absolutely. Yeah.
After the break, you get a big wide shot of the Keel Center, and my God, not an empty seat in the building. It looks beautiful. It looks like a work of art. So many people. Kurt Angle comes out with Steve Blackman, an abbreviated promo this week. He says, "You boo me and you cheer Kurt Warner?"
Yeah, good one.
Who's
Good
Kurt Warner?
cheap heat. Who's Kurt Warner?
Yeah.
Kurt Warner is actually one of the most incredible sports stories of all time because he was a quarterback who played, I think, Northern Iowa or something. Then he played in arena football. And when the Rams were really good, their quarterback Trent Green hurt his knee in the beginning of the year, and everyone goes like, "Well, that's it because we don't have a backup. We have this scrub." And this never, ever, ever happens in football. This scrub, Kurt Warner, suddenly, who had played in these other like arena leagues, these little leagues, smaller leagues, started just playing fantastic, and then became the MVP, and then won the Super Bowl. It's like a thing that just doesn't happen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he's in St. Louis when the Rams were in St. Louis. So he is this like ridiculous hero, and St. Louis never had a football team champion. So it was one of those like, at the beginning, everyone was deflated, like so much like, oh, well, we suck now. Our fucking all-star quarterback's hurt. And even the coach made this famous Dick Vermeil a speech at the beginning and said, "We will rally around Kurt Warner." Everyone's like, "Yeah, right. Fuck you." And so it's really an amazing like rags to riches story. In fact, he was working. They tried to make at a Costco or something, and became now he's a Hall of Famer, like literally. And so he's a good person he was very beloved, especially at this time to be like. So he's a good person for him to shit on and just say like, "Well, he just got lucky." What. So
definitely got the heat there.
Yeah.
And turns out they're facing the Hardys, which is a really fun match. And this is like what you were saying. This is just pure action. There's really no storyline. These teams aren't feuding. The feud, I guess, is with Angle and Blackman is kind of like a mini feud. Right.
Well, and there's just something so good about this overall angle of like, okay, sign up for your own matches, because then at least that little bit can be someone going like, I'd like to face them and prove ourselves, instead of sometimes, when it's just like, and here's the next match. It's booked. But why? It's like, you need it's just like a little something, and that always helps.
Yeah.
Like they even if it's that dumb, they signed up for it. Oh, okay.
No, and it's an excuse to have a good match and to kind of get the Hardys moveset over. Because, again, this is a relatively new team, but every week their pop is getting larger and larger. And as we're talking, everyone gets a pop on the show. Everyone
gets a pop.
Yeah. It's like Oprah. You get a pop. You get a pop. I really like that Jim Ross is, since there's not really much storyline in the match, he's getting over the storyline of the show. Talks about how Triple H has ruined people's lives. People are competing tonight because they want to compete, not because they're being forced to.
Yeah.
So that was good. And Jeff Hardy, like every match I watch of this era, I'm amazed at Jeff Hardy pulling out something innovative, especially for the time. Like him in this moment in 2000 would fit right in modern day pro wrestling. Which I think is so impressive. He goes for a Huracan Rana on the outside, and Blackman is strong and catches him.
Right.
And grabs him by the legs, and Hardy's upside down, almost in a pile driver position, and gets rammed into the stairs in a spot you see often nowadays. But back then, I don't think you've ever seen it. Like, that must have been the first time. So cool. Blackman gets really pissed off at the end of the match, and he runs into the ring with kendo sticks. He's about to attack Matt Hardy, but from behind, Jeff Hardy drop kicks him from the top rope. Blackman drops the sticks and basically walks into Matt Hardy's twist of fate. 1, 2, 3, gets the pin. Kurt Angle rolls into the ring. He wasn't able to stop it in time, and he was infuriated with Steve Blackman, because it's like, wait a minute, his undefeated streak.
But technically not. Yeah.
Yes.
And also the announcers could be like this, and there's the great thing of tag team wrestling, always like, you can defeat superior opponents through coordination and tag team synchronicity.
Right. The Hardys had better tag team experience.
They're brothers, for Christ's sake. Damn it.
Backstage, Mankind tells Mankind that if anybody asks
you're getting a little back into like, what is he getting at? Now you're like Snidely Whiplash.
Mankind tells Mankind if anybody asks Mankind where Mankind is, Mankind will say Mankind is all tied up
Yeah.
And he laughs maniacally. Backstage, Edge comes out of the McMahon Helmsley locker room and tells Christian they got what they wanted. Ooh, a tease for later. So see, like, even though you set up the pillars of the show with the main event and the top of the hour, you're still filling in the middle of the show with segments right before the break. So that's the teaser before the break. After the break, you have Val Venus come out. We haven't seen Val Venus on the main shows in a few weeks. He's been on Heat, probably because of this new initiative to tone down things.
Right.
Comes out, he's the European champion, and he doesn't do his typical porno-y intro this week. The first time he hasn't done it. Instead, he reveals to the crowd, you might not know this, but Edge is about to marry my sister. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert, it doesn't last.
True. True stuff.
It's true, but it doesn't last.
Yeah.
He's marrying his sister, and this was such a weird line. He says, while he has what it takes to marry my sister, he doesn't have half of what it takes to beat me for the European title.
Yeah.
What?
I know it's. He's got everything to marry.
How do you quantify what it takes?
Yeah. Fuck it. Just go with it. Yeah.
All right. After Edge comes out, we get another Taz teaser. This goes a little longer. Jim Ross is joking about how Jerry Lawler looks like a Mandarin. The match is back and forth. It's purely competitive. No one's cheating.
This whole Raw is about athletic competition.
It really is. This was another clean finish.
Yeah.
And again, a very clever way to get the clean finish. It's none of these wins are dominating. It's like, oh, somebody makes a mistake and the other guy capitalizes on it, which is Edge went for his spear. Val Venus got out of the way. Edge hit his shoulder on the turnbuckle. Val Venus hits a gorgeous fisherman suplex and gets the win. They shake hands after. It's nice. And then to top Val Venus's weird promo, Edge says, oh, you want something not to make sense? Hold on. Let me get this mic. And Edge goes, you may have been the best man tonight, but you will not be the best man at your sister's wedding. The crowd goes, what? And he just goes, oh, because Christian is going to be. And and Val Venus is like, oh, well, that makes sense. He's your brother. Yeah, no, like he's your brother.
Yeah. I don't know why I like that. I shouldn't.
You like that? He's like, you're not going to be the best man at my brother's.
It's just, like you said, it's so... I don't know.
It's so like, wrestling.
Well, sometimes there's these audiences where everyone's like you said before, like, I'm saying something. Okay. What? Yeah, it really has no, for everything being so pointed and like you made a dig. This has like just no bearing on anything and just no impact. Yet somehow they're all friends, I guess.
DX is still arguing backstage over crap Triple H is trying to pull. Then we see Chyna and Jericho by the door of McMahon and Helmsley. And Jericho's convincing her to sign up for the sheet that they need to do a tag match to get on the same page. Chyna and the Cat are a little wary, but they agree to do it. After the match, it's Chyna and Jericho once again against the Hollies. It's basically the opposite of the match they had on SmackDown, where Chyna's the one taking all the heat. And eventually she fights off Crash, builds up to the hot tag, except when she gets to her corner, Jericho accidentally just turns around and plays to the crowd just as she would have been able to tag him.
Right. And
because of that, Hardcore Holly gets tagged in. The true threat of the team. The true threat of the team. That's quite a tongue twister right there.
The true threat.
The true threat
of
the team.
Roll that R. The true threat.
And he wins with a suplex.
Why not?
Another clean finish. This is the clean finish event of the year.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is a clean. Yeah, absolutely right. In my opinion, I thought that this should have been a little less subtle. He should have bailed on Chyna worse, Jericho.
Oh, he should have made it more overt. You mean not pretend to accidentally?
I think so,
yeah. And then he ran away with the title. I mean, it's the same. It does feel like you're just at this point stretching until the Rumble with this angle.
How dare you?
Sorry. Backstage, Mankind is teasing Chinese water torture with hot coffee on Mankind.
Right.
And after one or two drops, he just pelts the whole cup at poor Midian and
Pretty
throws the
good.
whole thing in his face.
I can imagine the Three Stooges did this exact thing, but I'm not sure. Or any number of people. The Bowery Boys or something. Yeah.
Triple H is pacing, getting ready for his match. X-Pac comes in and asks if he's ready. He says, remember what you said about me being as good as you? Tonight, I'm going to prove it. So they come out, they have their match. And again, a competitive match.
Sure.
This is good. There was not quite a clean finish here, but an acceptable. This is maybe the first run-in of the show. What's going on here?
Yeah. Well,
And it's very intelligent. Hunter is very giving here. X-Pac takes most of the match, and he looks like he's about to win it. He lands the Bronco Buster, which the crowd goes wild for. The crowd wants X-Pac to win. Mm-hmm. And he goes to the top rope. Triple H distracts the ref. Stephanie climbs the stairs and knocks X-Pac off the top rope, which is just enough leverage for Triple H to lock in the pedigree. 1, 2, 3. And he gets the win, but it's a tainted win, and it shows that, in fact, maybe X-Pac is as good as Triple H, but he was too scared to find out if that was true or not.
certainly. Well put.
Yeah, so I thought this was very good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you have Too Cool and Rikishi versus Al Snow and the Headbangers. And like I said, Rikishi was totally made for this moment of the era last Thursday on SmackDown in his main event match. So you kind of want to capitalize on this new push, this new rub that Rikishi has. So he's incredibly dominant here.
Sure.
And it's not like the Headbangers need to be protected. They're pretty low on the totem pole. He should be dominating them. And basically, the Headbangers had the best of Too Cool. Then once Too Cool tag out, it's over. Rikishi takes out both members of the Headbangers. And you even managed to advance Al Snow's angle because afterwards, Al Snow attacks both members of Headbangers for disappointing him.
Yes.
So everybody gets a storyline advancement here.
Well, we're still kind of like working that Al Snow's going to be out on an island and hated, for, and that thing, while it's still alive, unfortunately, it just got so much wind taken out of its sail with the L. Brent Bozell shit and all the PG-13, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. View earlier podcasts for the Al Snow story.
Yeah, there's a whole clip. We've extracted the clip on its own. You can just watch the clip. After the break, Foley agrees to release the fake Mankind and tells him to not leave the room. Then we have Godfather and D'Lo coming out. D'Lo's dressed as the Godfather, kind of linking them as a tag team. As Godfather's about to do his whole intro, which the crowd loves, which we haven't seen in a little bit as well because of this censorship.
Yep.
The Dudleys interrupt the presentation for huge heat. It's a quick match. At the end of the match, the Dudleys try to negotiate with the Hoes and then try to just straight up steal them. And then Godfather and D'Lo come out. They have a fight. It's a count out.
Yeah.
No finish.
You don't know human trafficking like we do.
Yeah, only I can traffic these women.
Yeah.
Backstage, Tori is walking. Mankind stops her. It's very nice, but then a little flirty, a little overly flirty, and says he wants her voluptuous breasts. She should come back to his dressing room and smacks her on the ass and indicates he's in dressing room 3. That's dressing room 3. He makes it very clear to come to my dressing room, implying that he wants Kane to go attack the fake Mankind.
Mm-hmm. Pretty good.
I liked it.
Also, possibly done by the Three Stooges, Marx Brothers and or Bowery Boys.
Yeah, no, for sure. Then we have Test and the Big Show versus Bossman and Prince Albert. I'm happy about this match as well because both Big Show and Test both could use a little boost of heat, a boost of rub. And that's what Bossman and Albert are here for. Almost immediately, Bossman accidentally hits Albert in the back of the head with a nightstick. And then Test gets the quick win with a top rope elbow drop, as he should.
Sure. And it's always fun when you have a tag team match when there's well over half a ton of human being in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Wait. Oh, yeah. 3, 6, 9. Oh, easily. Yeah. Easily.
Then we see Mankind with the Chef Boyardee commercial, which just shows just how business is booming.
Yeah.
I think Chef Boyardee was a sponsor for years. Like a bunch of wrestlers ended up doing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I forgot that. That's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Chef Boyardee. And I take it back when I say your ravioli in the can tastes like vomit. kind of has that it's that metally. Yeah,
Wouldn't recommend.
I may have eaten some raviolis that were made during the Korean War in the when I was a kid, or who knows.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
We have the main event, DX versus the Acolytes and Rockin' Sock. And this really feels like a house show main event. Like, that's kind of how it feels, like how it's booked.
It does, but you know what? There's again, saying earlier stuff, like you could break this down and like, yeah, whatever. You could almost call it kind of sloppy booking or whatever. But it's exciting because it's so goddamn over. And you want, and it's The Rock, and then, Triple H want to come up, and so the Acolytes are rising. So while it is exactly like, oh, they're just throwing another ridiculous 8-man tag, somehow it transcends it through just the participants and how over it was. I was surprised watching because I kind of, when I looked at it, like, oh yeah, this seems to be like a little mix and match thing. But it was like, no, it's, you know what I mean? You get that feeling when you're at a house show or something where it's like, oh, this is some 6-man or whatever. Like, okay, fine. But this had a little more weight to it just because of, I think, the participants.
Oh, no, it felt like a big deal for sure. Don't get me wrong. And you did advance the main event storyline, which was the purpose of the match ultimately. But I did want to mention, when this match got announced at the top of the show, I was like, oh, it's pretty unique for wrestlers to wrestle twice in one show. I feel like you typically don't ask that of wrestlers. And I noticed that sometimes when that happens is when things were thrown together at the last second.
Sometimes, but not always. I mean, there was, and especially in this era, you'd have some of that. In fact, Triple H he had a gauntlet one time. I remember, I can't remember when, like put him through like 3 or 4 matches, and and sometimes, and then The Rock also. So some of these main event players, there were times that they were put into those situations, whether it's not even scheduled matches, different kinds of physicality all through the night. So I would say that it wasn't that uncommon, but point well taken.
And so the climax of the match is Mankind getting a hot tag and showing great fire. Crowd is super revved up for Mankind. As he's attacking Triple H eventually fights him off, and he himself tries to go for a tag, but all of the X jump off the apron. They're like, you know what? This is your battle. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense because Billy Gunn and Road Dogg are mad that he booked them in a match against each other. And I'm sure X-Pac is mad that he cheated in his match. So they leave, and the other side runs out to attack all the guys that leave because they still have heat with DX. It's only Mankind, Triple H, and Stephanie left at ringside. Eventually, Triple H is beaten down. Mankind pulls out Sacco in the corner. Stephanie tries to stop him. She gets back on the apron to stop him, and Mankind tries to give her the Sacco. Triple H makes sure that doesn't happen, gets rid of Foley, checks on his wife, then gives Mankind a belt shot and eventually a pedigree on the announce table. Mankind busted open.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Gets thrown in the ring, suck it, pedigree, and gets the win, which I was surprised. I thought that maybe Foley should get the win since you're setting up the match. Spoke too soon.
Sure.
Because after the match, Triple H isn't done. He knocks the ref down and continues to attack Mick Foley. And that's his cardinal mistake because Mick Foley is tough. Mick Foley cannot be held down. You might get him for a 3 count, but you better run out of the ring because he gets back up, takes the mask off, and now it's on. And he really, really lays it into Triple H. Even though he's faces a crimson mask, Mankind wins the brawl. So ultimately, he ends the show looking like the more tough guy of the two, leaving you to question, is Triple H in trouble?
True. And I believe, and you might know better than me, pretty soon is the Cactus Jack thing, right?
Yes. This is all setting up the Cactus Jack thing on SmackDown.
This was in the air then to be like, well, why does, Mick Foley needs to come up short, and even though at the end he does win the brawl, that's starting to be in the air. We're like,
but you could argue he wins the brawl when he morphs into this Cactus Jack persona. He took off his mask, and that's when he won the brawl. That's what I thought was like the subtle foreshadowing of Cactus Jack there, because he couldn't win it as Mankind.
Or
let me tell you how you wrote it.
Or you could argue that when he took the mask off, that was invoking Cactus Jack.
Wait a minute.
And kind of a subtle foreshadowing of why Cactus Jack needs to be here. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. No, I wouldn't have gotten that.
Of course.
It's very subtle. No, I loved it.
Yeah.
Especially knowing what you're doing on Thursday. It made all the sense in the world for mankind.
Wait, mankind.
Wait, to lose.
I think the thing is, if you take the volume down when you say mankind, then we're not like, oh, he's. And when you make it too big, it's just like, you become weird. Frankenstein.
So that's Raw. Before we go, I do have some
Raw.
Notes.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Raw.
That's Raw. I have some notes from The Observer that I wanted to go through. The Wrestling Observer newsletter for the week. Jim Ross mentioned on an interview with The Observer that they're looking at putting Amy Dumas, who eventually comes in as Lita, was known as Miss Congeniality in ECW, and Papi Chulo together, and they may be introduced in 4 to 6 weeks. And Papi Chulo has been learning English, and it helps because Dumas speaks Spanish, so she can help him out. And they do debut very soon. I remember I was very big on Miss Congeniality. I love that she did some lucha moves. She was pretty at the time. Very, very new metal aesthetic.
She's super
she's
dynamic.
Still pretty.
You know, to be like a young woman, went down to Mexico, learned Spanish, did all, you know what I mean? She's a very, very intriguing real life and wrestling character, in my opinion.
Yeah, so my question here is like, do you get a heads up here? Like, hey, we want to put this duo together. Do you want to come up with something for them? Like, did you know she was coming in?
You're always getting all kinds of heads up. Sometimes just based on proximity and sometimes based on, and that's what was so crazy about this world. I can't impart enough about how like it's organized and it's amazing, but someone might be like, oh, you know, we're thinking of doing this or whatever. So, oh, okay, that might be mentioned. Or later, you know, it might be the 11th hour and one of us would have missed that or something. And like, oh, you didn't know this is happening tonight? Excuse me? You know, so this one we did kind of know. And then, but at the same time, there's so many plates being spun because there's a lot of things like, hey, we're thinking of doing that. Okay, I'll come up with some stuff later. Hey, what about this? Oh, that died weeks ago. Oh, fuck, I didn't know. You know what I mean? So at any given moment, it's just like, you know.
Also, since it's the beginning of the year, the Wrestling Observer Awards were announced.
Oh.
And I wanted to go through some of these.
Nice.
I tried to keep it to, like, you know, if something won that you didn't write, I didn't quite count that. You know, like, we don't care. We care about the Russo stuff.
Are these awards from the previous whole year?
Right, yeah, for 99.
Yeah.
So the Wrestler of the Year, you would think, would be Steve Austin. But because this is the Wrestling Observer Awards, it's actually Misawa, which makes sense. I mean,
well, that's like a fucking Rolling Stone when they have the 100 best guitar players. They always sneak one in there to be like, oh, fuck you. You're just saying that to be like, you know.
I want to be clear. This is voted by the readers of the Wrestling Observer, not Dave Meltzer. So you would think it makes sense that Misawa had a larger collection of people who seek out the Observer are more likely to know who Misawa is than the typical pro wrestling fan.
This is true. And also, I don't know. He could have just made him up. Let's say it.
Well, Austin was number 2, I want to mention. And Vader 3, which is pretty high for Vader, but he was in All Japan at the time on top. Right. And then The Rock 4, Keiji Muto 5.
Yeah. Well, but, you know, in his defense, it makes sense because what are you going to do? Just like WWE was like by WWF at the time.
Yes.
As far as money, everything, boom. So what are you going to do? Just make it a WWF fest all the way?
Right.
And to be independent and to do that makes sense. So. And Mizawa's fucking incredible.
Yeah, exactly. There's also that.
Yeah.
Most Outstanding Wrestler also went to Misawa. Number 2, Benoit. 3, Kobashi. And then the rest of it is basically Japanese.
Yeah.
The top 5 is Japanese people.
And also if he's being like a wrestling purist as opposed to a sports
Right. Well, then the Sports Entertainer Award is the best.
There is a Sports Entertainer Award.
Yeah, it's called the Best Box Office Draw, which used to be called the Best Babyface. But now it's been morphed to that. Yeah. And that, Steve Austin resoundingly wins.
Gotcha. Oh, that all makes sense.
Yes. And Rock is number 2, followed by Keiji Muto. And then the feud of the year was Austin versus Vince, which really showed how much legs that had.
Feud of the century.
Yeah.
Wait, let's see. Well, who would be up there? That helped launch everything.
Yeah, like
that's
Hogan Andre, I guess maybe, but
yeah, but it wasn't that long either. I don't know, man. I think Austin, probably my favorite feud of all time.
Number 2 is Rob Van Dam versus Jerry Lynn, which again shows you what kind of smart marks we're dealing with here, because it's an ECW exclusive. I mean, great matches.
The nature of the Observer is smart markism.
Yeah. And 3 is Steve
smart
Austin
Marxism.
versus The Rock.
What are you, a smart Marxist?
Taking the award for Best on Interviews and Most Charismatic, 2 different awards, is, of course, The Rock.
Yeah,
much
hard
deserved.
to beat. Yeah.
Bruiser Brody Award for Best Brawler, obviously. Mick Foley gets the award.
Yeah. Sure.
Gotta give it to him. Most underrated here is Chris Jericho, which most underrated is also kind of like not pushed enough. It's kind of the most underpushed.
Sure. Who also has some Japan roots.
Mm-hmm. So he was also voted the reader favorite wrestler, which was interesting.
Oh, interesting. That is interesting.
So, smart marks love.
Yeah.
Chris Jericho. Promotion of the year, WWF. First time WWF won in first time in 5 years that New Japan didn't win promotion of the year.
Even the smart marks have to be bulldozed by those impressive numbers. They have to be.
Exactly. That just shows the power of WWF, because they hadn't won promotion of the year before this ever since in the previous winners since 83. They never won promotion of the year. It was always New Japan or All Japan.
Right.
Or the UWF won once or twice. And in 83, Jim Crockett Promotions won. Which just shows so WWE is so hot that even the smart mark's it was the best.
Yeah. And also, I might say this too. You might argue in previous years, whatever the cartoonish nature of the wrestling or whatever, but now there's so much. There's 5 original hours of programming a week. So to watch all of it, there is wrestling, there is Gaga, there is everything. So, I mean, that's part of it. You can't really make those, just the amount of time and content they're chewing up. So, you can find everything there. So
yeah,
it has something to do with it.
Best non-wrestler was Vince, which used to be best manager.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. Best announcer, JR, of course.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Worst announcer at the time, Tony Schiavone. Not fair. But he was kind of phoning it in at the time.
Yeah, but you know what? There's got to be shittier ones than him. My God. He's just a natural born orator, broadcaster.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? It's kind of remarkable. So I can't imagine, even on his worst day, there's got to be a lot of shittier people than him, I would say.
Yeah. I think what was interesting is these are all the best ones. Then in the category of the worst, for worst major wrestling card, number 1 is Heroes of Wrestling, which I don't know if you ever saw that one. It was just this legend pay-per-view, which completely went off the rails.
Refresh me. Yes.
Jake the Snake was very drunk. He cut a promo about blackjack. He's like, you want to talk about 21? Well, I'm 22.
Yeah.
Yes. Then it was the Bash at the Beach in Fort Lauderdale. I believe that was the one where Jeff Jarrett laid down and Hogan just pinned him. And then Vince Russo came out and called him a piece of shit, saying he didn't want to.
And also, wasn't there something about that one that was was it outside in the day or?
No, actually, I'm wrong. That wasn't, that was the one coming up.
Okay.
That was Bash at the Beach 2099. The main event was Randy Savage and Sid Vicious versus Kevin Nash and Sting. I've blocked this out of my head.
There was a couple of them, and I don't know if this is it, where it was just weird because they were overusing, like, we're going to be at Universal Studios or we're on the beach, and just the setup.
Oh, yes.
The visual setup was so distracting. The way it was like, there was like outside and it was day. It was kind of like sometimes you'd see those old cotton bowls with the Von Erichs where you're like, this is shitty on TV because the seats are empty and it's this and it's just, the actual visual production value was so distracting. It's like you couldn't even. I don't know if that was a good match.
That was 95. They did the outdoor beach. I like the beach vibe, but I
you know what I'm saying.
What you're saying is totally true.
I mean, I like the beach vibe too. I like when things are off the rails and fucked up. Watching it out of context. Like, this is great. It's all fucking going haywire. Like Sold Out. I kind of like Sold. Remember WCW Sold Out? Just because they're oh, this is all fucked up.
The fish eyes and the weird camera angles. Yeah. The pay-per-view itself sucked, but and so the third worst card of the year was the Survivor Series, which was ranked worse than Over the Edge, where Owen Hart died, which was of course before your time.
Yeah, but boy, let's.
And the Survivor Series was of course the event which we covered here on the show where Austin got run over, which I mean, in a way, it's not your fault. You got put in quite a pickle here.
No, I kind of have I have no objective opinion.
Yeah.
But that one always has a soft spot, just the way it was pulled off. And I don't think it was like, ooh, that was a stinker. It just was like odd. So I don't know. And as far as the, Owen, you can't even, it doesn't even fit in any category other than tragedy. So,
yeah. That did win the most disgusting promotional tactic, which was continuing the pay-per-view after Owen died. And the second worst was the Big Show father cancer angle. And 6 was hiding Austin's injury for Survivor Series. And don't worry, Big Show versus Bossman also won worst feud of the year.
Huh. Yeah, I'm not going to agree with that.
Number 2 was Al Snow versus Big Bossman. So Bossman gets 1 and 2.
Well, that was the thing about that. I will probably say, it was my idea to say, hey, he should go drag his dad's casket away and get into that whole, territory. And that was a weird thing because I remember watching it, the tape rolling backstage with everyone, Big Show too, and then it was an odd moment because when he was dragging the casket away, everyone popped just fucking holy smokes. But then there's also there's laughter because it's just like, this is so absurd. And then some of that kind of goes into I remember the Big Show being like, oh man, do I look like a joke? Is this, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh fuck, I'm just a hired hand here to just make things fucking exciting and weird and what the fuck, you know what I mean? And it's just that thing, that nature of the odd nature of fucking wrestling, which is like, oh, that was over, that was huge. Oh, but does that take away from, which I think they over dramatize all the time, does that take away from me being a badass or this or that, or you know what I mean? You start to post examine it, and it's like, fuck, I don't know. It's now decades later, it's still a moment that's talked about. So I think that goes into the smart Marxism, that's just ridiculous territory. So what kind of feud is it? But then you're just also not answering what is pro wrestling entertainment? Is that a good match? Is that competitive? Is that real? And then the Observer. So it's all a milieu of fucking weirdness.
And also, you did. You would agree that a feud went a few weeks too long. There was a few, I think we discussed, Big Show. Bossman went 2 or 3 steps too far before we
imagine this. Imagine this is my lawyer. I have no comment on that.
Well, the point I'm making there is because it did overstay its welcome, and I think also because it was in the last end of the year, it was so fresh in people's mind. Because even if you think about it, the first 1 and 2 were WWF, and then 3 and 4 and 5 were WCW stories. No way were WCW stories were better than this big, you know what I mean? worst shit was way worse than WWF's worst shit.
Yeah.
I think it's just nobody was watching them at the time, so they didn't see the shitty thing.
Right.
And it's so fresh.
I agree. And I'm so glad we finally have the courage to take to task the number 4 and 5 on the list of the Observer.
Yeah.
January whatever 5th, 2000. The ridiculousness of Meltzer and the 4 and 5. It's just ridiculous. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
It had to be said. Finally. 20 years, but 25 years, but finally it can be said.
Well, folks,
end the show.
We're wrapping it up from here.
Yeah, we did it. We fucking went out on a high note.
Of course, please send us your feedback. What do you think was the worst feud of 99?
Yeah, there you go.
TFT Attitude Era at gmail.com. That's our
Powerful.
email address.
Went out hot. Beautiful segue promo. I love it.
Yes.
Bye,
Follow
everybody.
our socials. We'll be back next week on Tales from the Attitude Era.